Coming up next, I have an interview with a true blast from the past. Let's see if you remember these guys. They had 6 hits in the late 70s into the early 80s, a few of which we hear all the time still. But then they just vanished. They disappeared. Would they be forgotten? Well, not exactly. There are actually 2 major events that brought this band back to the pop culture sense. 2 major things that brought about their resurrection into our culture again. When the term yacht rock was invented, they blew up again as one of the foremost purveyors of that genre. And then about that same time in 2008, one of the world's #1 comedian/actors wore their band t-shirt in one of his hit films and put them back into our collective consciousness. Coming up next, the 2 principals from the band tell us the story of their 2 biggest hits, including singing one of these songs to someone in an airport to see if it would be a hit single, depending on how they thought about it, and their rise to the top of the AM dial back in the 70s. It's coming up next. Hey, music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you are all about music, you're going to want to subscribe to this channel below, hit the red button so you don't miss an episode, click the bell, do all that stuff. If you'd also like to support us on Patreon, that helps us to get more interviews. So today we're going to go back to a feature that we've been missing for a while. You may recall it's called Yacht Rock Smoothies. The story behind the smoothest songs in the harbor with exclusive commentary by the band, an interview I did some years ago. The genre of yacht rock was made up 30 years after the music actually peaked on the charts. It was invented by J.D. Risner, Hunter D. Stair, and Lane Farnham, with a Channel 101 series of 12 episodes that parodied the smooth, soft rock of the late 70s and early 80s, or should I say paid tribute, in my opinion. From Kenny Loggins to Michael McDonald.
I'd love to work with you. What, you can toss me overboard like you did your last partner?
To Steely Dan and Hall & Oates.
Let me tell you one.
It's actually one of my favorite YouTube series of all time. In fact, I'll link to it below if you haven't already seen it.
You're on, Hall & Oates.
But that's another story.
The definition of yacht rock, though, has gotten out of control. SiriusXM sometimes plays songs and artists that are not even close to the genre, just because they were on the radio at the same time. What started out as a joke, though, has become a worldwide phenomenon. The inventors of the genre even have a scale that tells you if a song is yacht or yacht. In fact, I'll link to that below as well. Bottom line is that the band Pablo Cruise is definitely yacht rock, and their smash 1978 hit, Love Will Find a Way, is the subject of today's episode of Yacht Rock Smoothies, including an exclusive interview with the founding principal members. So before we get into this interview, let me give you just a quick history of the band. Pablo Cruise was formed in San Francisco in 1973 with former members of the band Stoneground. It was David Jenkins on vocals and guitar, Cory Lerios on keys and vocals, Bud Cockrell on bass and vocals, and then Steve Price on drums. A lot of people, me included, thought that the band was named after one of the members. I always thought that that was the name of like the main singer. Then my dad set me straight. My dad loved Pablo Cruise. He liked all kinds of music just like me. The band would end up explaining more than once that Pablo represents an honest, real, down-to-earth individual, and Cruise depicts his fun-loving and easygoing attitude towards life, kind of like the mullet. Business in the front, party on the back. So A&M Records signed the band soon after that, and in the late summer of 1975, the band released their self-titled debut record. Then their second album, Lifeline, came out in '76. Where the band actually out-70'd the 70s with their album cover. None of the singles from these albums cracked the charts. Their second album actually barely made the top 200 album chart. The door of success started to inch open as their instrumental 0 to 60 in 5 was used for sports shows on TV at that time, which would lead to more scoring of TV and film in the future for some of these guys. In 1977, they finally kicked the door all the way open with their third record, A Place in the Sun, that entered the top 40 charts for the first time and their hit Whatcha Gonna Do went to number 6. This album peaked at number 19 on the Billboard 200. It went platinum in the process.
What you gonna do when she says goodbye?
1978, that was the peak year for this band. It started out a bit dismal as bassist singer Bud Cockrell exited the band. It was right before the recording on the album started. But the remaining members built on the success of What You Gonna Do by bettering it with their biggest song as a band. Love Will Find a Way. It became their signature song. It hit number 6 on the Top 40 Countdown, Hot 100. And it went to number 5 on the Cashbox charts with the respective album that it came from called Worlds Away. That went platinum, and it became their first and only top 10 album. An additional hit followed from that album, Don't Want to Live Without It. I love that song. Both songs written by the duo of Dave Jenkins and Cory Lerios, who really co-wrote every one of the band's hits. Co-wrote with a few other people, sometimes just together. Then this band had a few other hits. They had Cool Love in 1981, and then they broke up. That is until Will Ferrell wore their famous logo on a baseball shirt in the 2008 movie Stepbrothers.
Hey.
That and Yacht Rock. It put this smooth band back in the limelight after decades out of it, and they're touring right now. Up next, an interview with both David Jenkins and Cory Lerios, the principal voices and songwriters behind these songs, and many more. And we're going to feature the story of this and their rise to the top next on Professor of Rock. Here's Dave and Cory from Pablo Cruise on a 70s classic.
That record was because the pressure was on it. I think that you and I came together and we worked really hard to write a great record. And we felt like that when you asked about What You're Gonna Do, Replacing the Sun, where we were with that, it was probably mixed emotions. This one, I think we really knew. I remember we played at Chico, remember? Yeah. And we had a rough cut of the record. We played it for some people in the trailer. And you could just feel this record was going to work.
Right.
And it wasn't like we weren't known. No. But you knew that record was going to work.
Platinum and number 6 on the album charts. I mean, it's a huge record and 2 of your biggest hits off of it as well. Love Will Find a Way. Every time I would hear a song back in the day, I would try to find the story behind the song. Read anything and get my hands on it before the internet.
That's great. It's great to know there's people like you that exist.
I mean, that's what was cool about the record, right? Liner notes, and you don't have access to who you guys are like the internet, and so you're wondering who are these guys.
Did you think that I was 6'6" in that cover?
We had the track, and we hadn't done the vocal yet. And I was headed to Los Angeles. I remember being at San Francisco Airport. I think it was PSA back then. It wasn't Southwest. I remember PSA Airlines. And I'm standing in line waiting to check in, and there's this gal behind me. And I've got this little player. And she said, oh, yeah, I'm listening to it. She said, oh, what you listening to? Oh, this is a song that we're recording right now. And I turned it on, and we got real close, and I said, here's what the song does. And I sang it to her with like, ooh, that's going to be good. That was my clarification on that one.
The thing about the song, though, is Dave had that basic riff of the verse. And so it gets him under my hands and I'm playing it. And how long? It was like 2 years you had that.
Probably.
And so we're making the record and now we're shooting from the hip because we're in the studio and we're starting to make the record.
We're at the record plant.
So we had the riff and I think he was in doing guitars or something. And I went in another room and started trying to get out of that riff to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Right.
And then hit those 2 chords and came up with the chorus. So we get there. So then all that Bill Schnee says is, you guys make great tracks.
Right.
Where's the song? And I mean, then it was another probably 2 months of wrestling to get the lyrics on that and Don't Want to Live and all those records. I mean, it wasn't easy.
I mean, we went to Hawaii. We stayed in Maui at a place called Puamana. We had 2 weeks there at this nice spot right on the water. And we had electric piano. We had my guitar and we worked on Don't Want to Live. I remember we had that Don't Want to Live.
I still have those tapes, and it was just the one
endless.
riff.
It just went on and on. Da, da, da.
Never got past.
So now what? God, we were the slowest writers in the world.
But it was, well, at the end of the day, though, writing is really, really, you either write it in 10 minutes, or you write it in.
Well, and it's going to be on the radio forever if it's a hit. And so you got to get it right.
Yeah.
It was a song of recovery and renewal, not just from a broken heart perspective. Did what you were going through kind of in the band necessitate it all with that song?
On that lyric?
Very likely could have been, yeah.
Well, I just remembered what I was going through with with Jocelyn. Well, it was still carrying over. I mean, I remember with Whatcha Gonna Do, it was like, oh shit, what are we gonna do? What am I gonna do when she leaves?
What you gonna do when she is gone?
Oh no. And then Love Will Find a Way was like, okay, it's gonna be all right. I mean, that's where I drew a lot of stuff from, was early on, was those relationships.
It's like a rejuvenation of the human spirit. I love that song because it goes into the chorus and it's like, love will find a way. There's that positive energy there.
Right. But speaking about the tracks and having put together, I remember being in the studio at the plant. You came in from one of the other studios, where there was a piano. You said, I think I got it. I think I got the chorus, and you had the transition chords and the da da do do do.
Yeah, right.
Right. That's it. Let's go.
Same with Don't Want to Live. It was like getting out of that riff was forever.
Right.
Sometimes you feel if it comes too easily, it's not that good. It's like giving birth. I think Billy Joel said that. It's like, each time you write a song, it's like giving birth. It's like
some of them grow up to be lawyers and doctors, and some of them grow up to be garbage men. I can't remember exactly what he said, but some of them, they're still your kids, right?
Yeah.
It was like the most Motown song that Motown didn't release. I mean, it was so.
Well, it definitely had the Motown, the bass lines and stuff. Were
like the Temptations of Yacht Rock. I mean, your lead vocal on that, so crisp.
Oh, but it's all right.
The harmonies. I mean, how did you guys approach harmonies on that song?
I don't know, man. We just
we sang. With Bruce sang on all that stuff with us, and
we had a nice harmonic blend.
Yeah,
we liked singing those parts, and they're still fun to do. But we always wanted to, mathematically fill the spaces that made sense to fill without overdoing it, and to keep the interest moving around. And the backups on that song, they do that to you. It's cool.
In pop culture, it was used in Swingtown and the new version of Love Will Find a Way that was recorded on your live album.
Yeah.
And you guys sang that with Ty Taylor from the band Vintage Trouble.
That guy can sing. Oh, he's good.
Yeah, he's a monster, man. I was in the studio and Dave and I had worked on this little, I said, we should just try to arrange this thing different. And Dave came up with this little chunky riff.
We all feel a need to change.
I started working on some stuff on it, and Ty was in another studio and he's walking by and I go, hey man, would you mind just, singing a demo on this thing? And he sang it. I was like, oh my God, man. That's like one pass.
Love will find a way.
I still think they should release that as Vintage Trouble. Because I mean, it's a, you know, they're kind of a blues band and it's kind of a bluesy version, but man, does he sing the hell out of it.
Don't be afraid of yourself.
Was also used on the Americans.
Where do you get all this stuff? What do you do all day?
I know, you could say that I'm a little obsessed, huh?
It's good to know there's some people that are obsessed with this stuff. You know?
Well, I mean, when you hear a song again now, it happens a lot with even my kids. They'll be watching a show and there'll be some song that I loved as a kid, and then they're now saying, this is an awesome song. And I'm like, let me tell you about this song.
Right.
I get to pass on what my dad passed on to me, pass on to them. And that's the whole idea, is keep passing these stories down the line about how you guys wrote these songs. Because,
and you know, that's interesting because I think a lot of young people are really tuned into a lot of the old music because
They
they're
are.
almost mesmerized by it. Because, I mean, truth is we played those records. Not even with click tracks, I think. I mean, I don't even remember if we used click tracks.
Yeah, or tuners.
You know, I mean, it was just like we played it.
Oh, yes, it's all right.
before we go, I want to take a second to honor original Pablo Cruise bassist and singer, or co-singer, Bud Cockrell. He co-wrote some of the songs and he had a great voice.
Out the way you planned, oh, all your friends.
Bud sadly passed away in 2010 from complications, diabetes. Bud sang that amazing vocal part on Whatcha Gonna Do. Very talented musician.
They calling you a fool, 'cause you don't know a good thing when you got it.
Thanks for watching. Leave us a comment about Pablo Cruise, who definitely has one of the coolest logos in music history. You got to get one of their shirts. It's just one of those shirts you have to have. What are your memories of this band and this 1978 top 10 hit? Give us your thoughts on Yacht Rock. What other Yacht Rock classics should we celebrate in the future? You're going to hear this song and others. I'll link to it below so that you can watch those. And until next time, 3 chords. And the truth, my friends. I'll talk to you soon.